Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is you want me to check out. If you have your own song you'd like to submit for special selection, you can find a link to do so in the description below. Today's special selection comes at us from Kevin. It says, In Media Res by Adjy. This album is a wonderfully weird experiment in storytelling that centers on a boy and girl falling in love in rural America, except the narrator is an alchemist, and much of the background and subtext is told through biblical and alchemical allusions in the lyrics. And liner notes captured in this lyric video in Hebrew, Latin, and numeric code. I am quite intrigued by this. Yeah, let's dive in. I don't even know where to begin. I'm so stoked. This is such an interesting concept just on the conceptual level. I'm ready to hear how it's done on the execution. So let's dive in. This is Adjy in Media Res between longing and mystery.
Wait, hold, wait, tighter, eyes closed, era, hour, week, wait, shy, moment, quick, hold it, wait, hold, wait, runner, don't go, call, summer, day, week, hour, era, quick, hold it, wait, hold, wait, tighter, eyes closed.
Yeah, this is just a really gorgeous introduction. Very sparse instrumentation. A lot of this has just been rhythmic percussive. We have some sort of music box or xylophone. Oh, we got like a string behind on the right. And the thing too, it's like all of this detail musically, um, it's fairly simplistic. We'll get into a lot of the melodic layers in the analysis, but there's a lot of conceptual work that went into this.
Further back, a mystery. In Josh's house, you came to me. In my room, I wept alone at the story.
Yeah, we're starting to fill this up now. We have a couple guitars. Oh, that modulation! Yes. This is the first section of the song that has a strong foundation.
And one behind.
These mad lads. I'm thinking this is going to be a bit on the shorter end because there's not a lot happening musically, but I don't think it's going to be a short video overall because I have a ton of admiration for what this is, which, at least to me, is massively cross craft. There is so much happening on a musical level. There's so much happening on a textual level, like the text of the song, what is written down. There's so much understanding of not just poetic lyricism, but also an understanding of at least cursory alchemical ideas and a love for numbers and cryptology. Is that the understanding of writing in code? Um, the idea of portraying information through different types of informational transference. A very basic understanding of that would be like Pig Latin. The rules that designate how you speak in Pig Latin, it allows you to reverse engineer the words to put them in English. Or any other language. I never thought about it. Pig Latin to me just seems very English oriented, but I assume any language could do what it does. Though I guess different languages would have different reliances and weights for vowels versus consonants. Maybe it would work. I don't know. I guess people who speak other languages, especially in other cultures, is Pig Latin a thing? outside of English, maybe even just maybe just outside of America. I don't know. I actually have no idea anything about Pig Latin other than just that I know how to do it. And for those who don't know what Pig Latin is, any word that starts with a consonant, you just take all of the consonants up to the first vowel and place it at the end of the word. Um, and then you add like AY to the end of it. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've done Pig Latin, but I don't even know why it's called Pig Latin. It's kind of a weird term now that I think about it. I've never given any critical thought to that entire thing. But anyways, the idea is that there are rules to allow you to transform words into other words that can then be reverse engineered and translated back. Another instance of this, I can't remember the name of it, but you ever seen one where like a lot of kids puzzles did this? I did this a lot in like first through fifth grade, young schooling, where they'll tell you like all the A's are D's and all the D's are F's and all the all the S's are W's or something like that. And then they give you this thing that makes no sense, and you just got to cross check the words with the legend or the guide. And once you do all the flip arounds, then you get a sentence that you can read. Yeah, all of this. I think it's cryptology. I could be wrong about that though, but it's about encrypting information inside of uh, uh, what is that word? Translational ideas, right? You're sending the information, but you need a key to decipher it. Um, and I kind of get a lot of that here. What was said though, specifically? Kevin stated that, numeric code. And I do see a lot of numbers being thrown out in that music video. Um, but there's also a very strong adherence to what looked to me as some sort of code as well. There's odd placements of capital letters that I'm pretty sure have hidden ideas or hidden words or phrases put in there as well. It's cross media, right? And then I also think that the visuals of the video had something to do with it as well. I picked up a couple namings of summer specifically, and maybe time has something to do with it, and that's why we had all this imagery. I did notice as well that track 2 and 3 were called A Boy Named June. And then the next 9 tracks are a 9 part song called When June and July Met, which, assuming July is another person, we see about these two people, which something was said here too as well, right? Um, Centers around a boy and a girl falling in love. So, assuming that June is the boy, July would be the girl. So, but then we also have like the secondary idea here where they meet at June 1st, which that was last week. And you couldn't, or sorry, July 1st. And just what is the timing of this? That was literally 5 days ago. There is almost no better time to have been introduced to this than today. I mean, obviously, 5 days ago would have been a lot better, but still, it's very close to when June met July. And then there's like 2 or 3 tracks afterwards. I don't remember what they're called, but my guess is that the 11 tracks there about June and July are this story. I got to keep going back. There's so much to do here. Uh, Centers on a boy and girl falling. All right, so the alchemist is the narrator of this story, and I'm going to assume that this opening and the 2 or 3 tracks after the June and July saga is about the alchemist, whereas the 11 songs in the middle are about this love story. It's just there's just so much work that went into this lyrically. I think that's what I want to point out. Because musically here, at least, I didn't hear anything that's really going to stand out with this concept, this frame story that we're getting so far. And this is the first track of the album, by the way. Um, I don't know. I have so many thoughts leading into this. I guess we should just get into the music and see where that takes me. So, musically, what is going on here? We have a single idea. This is a slow burn, 6.5 minutes of a single concept where we continue to see new and new layers added. We start off with just vocals, if I remember right. Um, and I think it's really interesting. The word I'm gonna have the lyrics pulled up because I think they're really important to understanding this. Also, I have to show this because the way that the text, the lyrics were portrayed in this lyric video are apparently the same way that they're presented in the liner notes. And I happen to have the liner notes because they put them up on their website. So I have what I can only assume are stanza numbers. We have one up here, and then we have a smaller two, three. We have a five here, so I'm going to guess that this is four. We have a large 10 and 13 here. I wonder if there's some sort of a musical break in those moments. But then, like over here, we see a broken star. You probably can't. This is very tiny on your side. Anyways, the N in broken is capitalized, where a broken star, even including A, are all lowercase. So I really do wonder if there's some sort of hidden message in here. Um, it's just this whole project kind of blows my mind. All right, so musically, we have this opening idea, right? Um, where we have these repeated we have this main pulse, the bump 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 bump. And I really love how it creates the heartbeat of the song because at least to me a lot of it feels it's rhythmic and it's also very um, what is that, orchestrated. It's calculated, right? It is this very simple idea. Whereas when we get the lead vocal, right, doing some of these other ideas, singing over the choir or the group vocals that are doing this rhythmic idea here, um, the rhythms of our lead vocalist are a bit more chaotic, a little bit more difficult to read at times, kind of starting off of downbeats at times and having phrases extend over the 4/4. It's uh it's really interesting just to kind of see the differentiation here because to me this wait, hold, wait, tighter, eyes closed, era, hour, we see a lot of this. To me, it feels, especially if we're looking at this from an alchemical angle, it feels like instruction on how to do the alchemy, right? How to transmute whatever he's trying to do. It's very calculated. But then we bring in the main vocals, and we hear the thoughts of this alchemist, which is kind of the vibe I'm getting here. And through these, they're a bit more disjointed. The lines don't necessarily go together. The rhythms don't necessarily line up with the bar. They're not moving along with this heartbeat that is underneath this entire track. It's more sporadic, more wild, less calculated, and less predictable as a human mind would be. And I really love this division here between knowing what needs to be done and trying to figure out how to do it, right? Between cold, static instruction and the warmth and entropic element of human will and thought. It's just really, really great. And when they come together on the musical side, it is just gorgeous. They choose some phenomenal notes to really land on when both of these sides, the calculated and the more sporadic, when they really land on beats together. And we kind of have this moment of what I would call a key note, which is going to be a very strong moment for the chord progression. Just these beautiful triads and chords. It's just Everything's so good. And slowly we add in more and more elements on this. We have the drums that get added very sparsely, not a lot going on there. And then we add a glockenspiel and some other ornamental ideas, and then some strings. And I think at this point we're like at 5 minutes into the song. Like it does not add layers on very quickly. Um, and then we finish out with the final instrument. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was the guitars. I kind of vaguely remember mentioning guitars. And there's something really interesting about this final section that requires us to understand what happened in the other sections. Every melody that came in, or every ornamental idea that came in, every instrument that came in as a layer, did something similar to those before it, which is a rhythmically staccato idea. Everything was based off of shorter notes and a series of shorter notes. We don't really have anybody holding out notes. We have a couple of dotted quarter notes, maybe in our lead vocalist, but really not a lot of held out notes. It is kind of runs off as more of a stream of consciousness spoken style of singing where you don't really hold on to many syllables because it's kind of weird. Nobody talks like that, right? We have forward momentum and flow, and when we don't know what we're going to say next, we either include silence or we include mm, something that can just fill I don't know, space, so that our words are still concise, but we can fill the dead air. And I hope you guys know that I was purposely injecting all that there. I hope that came off well. I really. Anyways, we don't typically hold out notes, and I feel like that is expressed in the way that our lead vocal melody is written as well. It is stream of consciousness. We don't typically hold out notes in our speech, even when we're speaking in our minds. Or at least I don't. I don't suppose I can speak for everybody, but in the way that I've heard people speak and in the way I speak in my own mind, typically don't hold out syllables. That's when it reaches into the sing-songy stuff. In speech, syllables are abrupt. We can include silence or us or any type of other idea that can fill space if we need it, but we don't hold out syllables. We don't actually hold out a tone. And the rest of the instrumentation continues along with this. We have this core heartbeat in our choir, and then we have this very rhythmic forward moving idea in our lead vocals. And every instrument follows along with the lead that our two vocal sets have given us. There is nothing that really holds out notes. They're all a series of shorter ideas. Until I had mentioned it. It was probably about 5.5 minutes in. I said, oh, we finally got a foundation. We had instruments at the bottom holding notes. I don't know if they were full chords. There was a lot going on. I couldn't quite hear exactly what they were doing, but I did notice that we no longer had gaps. We're basically, this is going to be a weird thing. I hope you guys stay with me because this is how I perceive it mentally, where I can peer down through the notes and see the abyss under them. All right, so if we assume that notes physically fill space and there is a foundational tone that has no breaks in it, that would be a floor to the song. That's why I call it the sound floor. I can't recall saying that lately. I've shifted the foundations. But if you guys, any old time fans from, the first few months, I use the term sound floor a lot. And that is where that idea comes from. It's my visualization of music. It is an underlying, unbreakable, or unbreaking idea. Whenever we have a guitar just holding out chords with no breaks, that's our sound floor. It literally is the bottom of the sound that ensures that everything is held up above it. If I can look down and there's breaks, and through a combination of all these breaks, I can see beneath the music where there's nothing down there, it feels empty. It feels like it's lacking the foundation for things to be built on. We have put these notes, we have built this up on nothing, which is interesting because from what little I picked up lyrically, our alchemist has no idea what's going on and feels a bit confused. They are lacking the foundational ideas to understand this story and how it can be applied to whatever they're trying to do. We'll get into that when we dive into the lyrics, but I think it's so interesting that it isn't until the final 60 to 90 seconds that we have a solid foundation of chords with notes, with no breaks for everything else to sit above, so it loses that Swiss cheese kind of feeling. Again, I don't know if anybody else feels music this way, but that's what it feels like to me when all you have is a series of shorter ideas where you don't have any notes that are just exist across long phrases of long phrases of time. It feels like there's a lack of foundational element. Like you just have these towers that are all kind of, some of them are balanced perfectly and some of them are a little off. And so you have these towers that are kind of jagged and they look like they could lean over and fall at any time. There's just not solid foundation underneath them. And that's what we get at the end of the track. And I said that's why it's so important because it's the one moment of the song that shifts away from the melodic phrasing that we had earlier to something of power, something of support. It is a massive moment in the song that really just recontextualizes everything. It no longer feels like a series of interspersed ideas. It feels like a song that's been built up from the ground up. It now feels cohesive and complete where everything fits together. And I'm real curious to get into the lyrics to see where that goes. The only other thing I really want to talk about is harmonies. Yeah, they're so good. I would love to see sheet music for this because a lot of it feels very much stuck within a 8-bar phrase, give or take, depending on tempo. Could be a 4-bar phrase. Um, but everything feels static. I don't really think there's a moment when we shift to a new chord progression. However, the harmonies themselves have a forward momentum to them. They move into and away from different emotional ideas, and I would love to see what key tones they use and what, in a lot of cases, what I think is inverted layering of chords so that we can get a new root tone within the same chord progression to create the emotional journey that they take me on through the harmonies, specifically the vocal harmonies. It's really interesting to hear the song feel like I'm reading a book, not just in the way that the lyrics were laid out in front of me that felt very much like going through the diary of somebody, but in the way that the music, despite having a similar chord progression throughout, felt very linear. I could obviously see the groupings of ideas, right? Definitely parts in the song where I'm like, oh, okay, we went back to this idea, or we're going to this idea that's a small variation on something we've done before. Or now we're looking at our opening concept with a small variation, right? So there's definitely moments where I can feel the structure of the song, but it still feels linearly told to me through the emotional aspects of the atmosphere. It is just so well done, and a lot of that comes through the ways that the vocal harmonies are crafted. It is just and the continuous layering of vocals. We start out with one voice, I think, doing our heartbeat idea, and then that expands into a choir. Then that kind of gets pushed down for our lead vocalist to take the spotlight. And then halfway through, we begin to add more voices to that as well, and we begin to harmonize on that while it is harmonizing with our underlying heartbeat. It is just done so good. Oh my god. I don't even need the rest of the album. I do, because I'm so curious about what's going on here, and I love puzzles, and this isn't just a musical puzzle, it's a literature puzzle as well, and there also seems to be some uh, messages encrypted in here, so like I'm very interested in this as a multimedia work of art slash game. Trying to get all the messages out of it. In fact, it kind of does feel a little bit like an ARG, um, but maybe just without the alternate reality area, which I guess we would just call it a game, but I don't know. I'm curious if this was ever released in an ARG sort of setting, maybe within their community. I don't know how big the band is. You know, if this is their first album, I doubt they have a large enough community to do something like that. But just the way that it's set up and the cryptic messages within it and the way that it's kind of, like I said, it feels like a diary that I'm reading. It reminds me of some ARGs I've participated in the past. Um, so yeah, I don't need the rest of the album because honestly, I am satisfied with this one song musically. I really enjoy everything that's happening here, but you know, this is an album that's going to the top of my list. I don't know if I'm going to dive into everything and dig into every nook and cranny and try to figure out what it's all about, but even just on a musical level, I am absolutely here for this. So let's dive into some lyrics. I don't have margin notes in this PDF because there were a couple of places where it was like 1 to 1. I don't know if that was telling me that it was the first line or if it's telling me that there is a ratio of something. It said alchemist. Later on, I saw a phrase get defined or something like that. So I don't have any of those liner notes here, or margin notes, I suppose. Would probably footer notes, anything like that. All I have is what is said and the lines that they're on. But we're going to try our best to see what's going on here. I do notice right on the front sheet here, um, page 1 tells you that it's song 1 in medias res, between longing and mystery. There's a quote here from Orpheus says, "I am parched with thirst and dying. Quickly grant me water from the lake of Nemorny to drink." And then we have 15811 and then a 2 under that. And something in Latin here and something in a writing I don't know. Like it kind of looks like a very stylized Latin, Arabic. Yeah, Arabic. Um, that's it, right? A B C D E F G. Those are, oh no, Arabic numerals. That's 1 2 3 4. So what alphabet is A B C D? Ah, I don't know. I'm blanking out on it. Is that the Latin alphabet? Anyways, it looks like a highly stylized, where I can kind of see like maybe a TAN apostrophe D or an O, but that T and the D I think are very, the A and the N I could say, okay, that's very close. But the first and last letter, I'm kind of grasping at straws there. So that might be a different alphabet entirely, which means we'd have to figure out what it is, if it has a correlation to a real alphabet, what it might mean. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we have Latin above that. Um, just what I wanted to point out though is right here in this first page, we're not even in the lyrics yet. We are in the cover page of this pamphlet for the lyrics or for this song, and there's already so many questions here. There's references to other works. There's numerical information to decipher. I mean, do these numbers have to do with lines in the lyrics? Is it something else? Is there a key that this needs to be translated out to maybe a 4 or 5 letter word? And then there's 2 other languages here and a symbol at the bottom, which might be necessary to understand, something might not. I really don't know. This is this is very cool. All right, so wait, hold, wait tighter. Eyes closed, era, hour. Weak, wait, shy, moment. Quick, hold it. Again, I don't know exactly what all of this means, but to me it feels very instructional. Wait, hold, wait, tighter. These are directives. They're telling you what to do. Eyes closed era, hour. Um, Again, we have another directive, and then we have prescriptive information. Interestingly, as we have eyes closed, comma, era, semicolon, hour, which makes the hour section an additional element to the closed idea of eyes closed for an era. Weak wait, shy moment, quick hold it. And then we replace this with wait, hold, wait, runner. Don't go cold summer. Day, week, hour, era, quick hold it. Uh, yeah. I don't know. Very interesting though. Like I said, to me, they're very directive though. Somewhere in between what it was and was to me, there is a line I cannot find, for it's ever drawn behind. So somewhere in between what it was and was to me, what it actually was and what it meant to me, somewhere in between the lines of what actually happened and my interpretation, reality and interpretation, somewhere in that messy area is a line I can't find, for it's drawn behind. Kind of trails off. Where two forms ever debut, the cloverleaf four rivers run through. This is in quotation marks. I'm going to assume that this is in something else. Maybe this is part of the story that this alchemist has. It goes back to the alchemist. Oh, for it's ever drawn behind on a page in their purlieu. Now holy writ, a broken star, it's who they were. In this writing, it says where two forms ever debut, the cloverleaf four rivers run through, the lightning bug below them flew, their candles lit in sacrament, holy rite, in open field, it's who they were. But the way that it goes back and forth feels interesting because it's like this person, this alchemist, is reading this text and thinking about things as they're reading it. And it's this back and forth of reading a line and their interpretation of it, and reading a line, interpretation of this. It goes back to the idea that somewhere between what he's reading, the words on the page, and what they mean to this person, to this alchemist, is where the truth is. What this alchemist is looking to find. It's somewhere between the words on the page and what they end up being in their minds. And man, that is just, I do wish that there were more vocalists. Maybe a narrator vocalist, well, and the book vocalist or the parchment, whatever this alchemist is reading. I guess technically it's all the alchemist, right? It's what the alchemist reads and what they think. So it makes sense it's all one voice, but I would really love for there to be some sort of distinction between the thoughts and the reading of this parchment. Because the music does not show this at all. This is only seen on the page when they separate out the thoughts from reading what's written. So we go back to the text. Oh, we don't go back to, well, no, we go back to the text. This is in quotations. Wait, hold, wait tighter, eyes closed, era, hour, weak, wait, shy moment, quick, hold it. So yeah, we repeat what was done at the beginning, but the beginning was the thoughts of the alchemist, and this time it's in quotations, which means that it's supposed to be what's written down, and maybe we are in medio res, which means the middle of the story. It could be possible that this alchemist has already read this over and over and over and has already fixated on this idea from the text. And it cycles around in their brain over and over, which is why it's the foundational idea that acts as the core chordal idea that the alchemist sings over. They could already be fixated on these two ideas. I really hope so. I hope there's so much intentionality in this. So outlay the years like dandelions, I transmute as lead for golden wine. The dog days stayed in sigil casks. When I take a dram, it takes me back. I scry their tale to quicken mine, and for a moment you're alive, but when I blink, I'm bound in skin, a lonely ram, a peerless twin. I panic, swill eyes clenched, I whined. Further back, a mystery. In Josh's house you came to me. In my room I wept alone at the story of my home, for you're all I've known of kin, born in the midst of requiem, and it all comes down to you, a bonny echo I once knew. And then we go back to the wait, hold idea. The taste wanes dull, the scent runs weak. I kept your coin, but the coin won't keep, and all I know is leaving me. The fiery swords cleft everything. We go back to the text, but somewhere between 12 and 1, out from the clock a new theme sprung, for now our time moves in a line, 2 before and 1 behind. Very cool stuff going on here, and I think I'm kind of getting an idea of where this story is going. So, there's a couple of moments here. Says, in my room I wept alone at the story of my home, for you're all I've known of kin, born in the midst of requiem. Um, and even another line says that, for a moment you're alive, but when I blink I'm bound in skin, a lonely ram, a peerless twin. It feels like this alchemist is one of two. Maybe it's another alchemist. Maybe it is literally a brother or sister that is a literal twin of theirs. But either way, this other person that they feel a kinship with is no longer around. I'm going to guess that they've passed. Um, and they're attempting to transmute them back to life. It says, uh, yeah, so he says, for a moment, I scry their tale to quicken mine. And for a moment, you're alive, but when I blink, I'm bound in skin, a lonely ram, a peerless twin. So it's almost like uh, this alchemist is on the cusp of basically reviving or resurrecting this other person. They're right on the cusp of it, and for whatever reason, they think that the answers to their problem to actually complete this alchemical solution equation is in this text about these two people, this June and this July. Um, and that is pretty much this entire opening. It is a introduction to this world, to the story, but it doesn't start at the beginning when the alchemist loses this other person. It starts in the middle of the story when they're trying to bring them back. And it introduces us both to the alchemist, their quest, and the secondary story, because the alchemist story is a frame story. And a frame story is just when you have an outlying idea that exists around another idea. One of the original ones that you might have had to read in schooling is Canterbury Tales, about a bunch of pilgrims who every once in a while in the trek tell stories, and you hear the stories that they tell, and then the book comes back to the pilgrims on their pilgrimage. A more modern take would be The Simpsons Halloween specials, where you have the core idea of them at Halloween, and then they tell their spooky stories, and they're like 7-minute shorts or whatever, and then it comes back to The Simpsons doing what they're doing at Halloween, and then we hear another short that someone tells the story of. Um, for us older Nick kids, Are You Afraid of the Dark is one where we have the frame story of the kids around the campfire telling spooky stories, and each episode is actually one of the stories being told, where we move out of the frame into the story itself. And when the story is ended, we come back to the frame story of the campfire, the fire is put out. So that's what this is. Our alchemist is our frame story. It explains that the core story is of the alchemist itself trying to read this text, and then we will spend 11 songs in the text, I'm going to assume, hearing about June and July, but all of that is in the past. It is events that have already happened. We come back out to the frame story at the end for the final 2 or 3 tracks. That's kind of what I'm guessing based on the title names. And we can see what the Alchemist is doing with the knowledge of the tale of June and July. Yeah, so that was a big thing. It explains to us the world that we're in, our main character, which is the alchemist, the text that they're reading. It sets this up as a frame story and explains the alchemist's task and what hurdles they need to get over in order to move on, right? And that's exactly what this is. It's our introductory track, both to the sound of the album, I'm kind of hoping, and to the story of this song. And it does a fantastic job of doing all of that in just 6 minutes. I am already invested. And while it is done in a very cryptic and artistic way, I think it's also very clearly laid out. I don't think that there's any room for ambiguity in what's happening. That's not to say that the lyricism isn't intricately done, but it's done with just enough mystery to drag people in and have them hooked on that while also being easy enough to read and understand to get people to the point of being hooked by the mystery. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. What is this? On Adjy's In Medias Res Between Longing and Mystery. That's where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Any thoughts you have on my analysis or the song itself. Anything you like to add on to what I was saying or correct. I absolutely love this and I'm going to have to be digging more into it. Above the comment section is a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree, which will take you to this menu right here. It has everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch, submit your own special selection, follow me on Twitter, support the channel through Patreon, or a bunch of other stuff. I don't know. There's like 13 links in there. Go check them out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. As usual, we'll be checking out more Women of Rock and some more special. I'm sorry. I don't know if you heard the door creak, but my child walked in the room and she's over here mimicking me as I do my outro. And I was trying my best to keep a straight face on it, but she's over here. And it's killing me. All right. So, yeah, another Women of Rock and a special selection tomorrow. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.